hoping to bring a different perspective to ABS and ABM with our talk today. So I'm going to share my screen here. No, I did not get in a fist fight. If you're wondering about my bandage here. So great, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in here. What I'd like to talk about is really what I feel a topic that we forget sometimes, which is, how do we actually do this in the first place? Meaning when we think about account-based sales and we think about account-based marketing, how do we actually align sales and marketing to even think about doing this as we, start to build out the strategy as an organization and as a company? Great, fade in. All right, so just a little bit about me. So my background, I've spent the last almost 12 years now in technology leadership as the first vice president of sales at Glassdoor and built out the original sales organization there. Since then, I've been the head of sales or sales leader at nearly 5 different startups. At Skaled, we've worked now with over 150 different startups, helping them to build out replicability in different components of their sales process. So what we do at Skaled is we partner with growth stage organizations, really supplementing vice presidents of sales, helping vice presidents of sales and marketing, through various challenges as they're growing and scaling their teams. So always have to have conversations and talk about what we're seeing, in the ecosystem. And I know account-based sales and account-based marketing is definitely, top of mind for a lot of leaders that we work with in particular. So there's a million different stats around why ABS, ABM matters. We all know that more and more people are involved in the decision-making process. We've really seen this as a trend of really post-financial global meltdown of 2008, 2009, where really what happened is people used to make investments of 50, 60, hundreds of thousands of dollars alone. And then what happened is nobody wanted to really make these big decisions on their own. So now we have this wonderful world of consensus decision-making. And so when it comes to consensus decision-making, we have to have different ways to get people involved, not just as leads, but throughout the process. And that's really where account-based sales comes into play here. I'm not going to talk about how to build out an account-based sales strategy. I feel like there are a billion resources that talk about, that you should build your ICP, create different segments for different messaging for different segments. And I feel like there's a million different ways that you can talk about actually how to do it. What I think is most fundamental and most foundational, though, is, man, how do we even think about pulling this off, right? Because we see a lot of companies that are just going through this trying to figure out, man, it sounds great in theory, but is there a way that we can possibly do this? So hopefully what you're going to learn from our talk now is you're going to learn a little bit about how to get sales, to get marketing, working together, and in a way that's right for your company. Because I think that's really important here, is that each company, the way that you're going to implement and roll out ABM is going to be based on the team that you have today, and I'll talk about some of those specific variables. So 5 tips. So first, is ABS right for my company? Right? So when we think about account-based sales, we think about all the different movements and things that go into account-based sales and building out that part and core competency for the organization. How do we create the right framework internally? Learning versus success. To me, this is really, really important. I think many times, especially when we're trying out new things, we're almost overly focused on success. Where in reality, as most of us practice some type of different lean methodology, the early days is really about learning. And I think it's really important when you're talking about ABS, the goal is that we're learning constantly on what this means for us. Next, we'll talk about ABS. It's not just leads, right? It's account-based sales. It's not account-based lead generation. And I think that's a real important distinction for a lot of sales organizations and marketing organizations, that it's not just account-based outreach, and account-based penetration doesn't stop at lead generated. And then commit. You cannot have a successful strategy without commitment. We've seen too many companies fail to implement ABM, ABMSD, ABS, whatever A strategy, because of a lack of a commitment. And really what ends up happening is companies, in theory, love the idea, but they never really get launched. All right, so here's the 3 things whenever we're going in and we're working with companies, and just from our observations, when we think about how to align sales and marketing, step 1 is like, is this the right time, right? Do we have the right people in the right place? The answer is almost emphatically yes. So then the key is, if the answer is yes, it's the right time, and we believe that taking a more account-based approach is right, what's really important to understand is, like, how do we make it right for our company? And to me, these are really the three aspects that we look at. One is leadership. Do I have the right people in the leadership roles to help to push this from the top down? Because what we find is that, many times it can be really easy to give up on ABS because it's just different. Salespeople just aren't used to, many times, all the varying complexities. They're used to kind of, I come in, I do my discovery, I run my demo, I run this very similar demo, I'm supposed to do this one thing. It's a much different process when you think about account-based sales. When we think about account-based sales, it's orchestrating, it's project management. We've talked a lot about that in our blog about sales becoming more like project management. And that's really truly at the essence of account-based selling, right? The second piece is headcount. Meaning, of course, it would be great if we could do all kinds of different crazy ABS strategies, but we only have so many people. So how do we basically put together the right strategy that's right for us today and that scales? And then finally, is it possible to create team collaboration? So it's, for us, these are really the three pillars that we think about. That if we don't have the right leadership believing in this from the top down, if we don't have any headcount on marketing, etc., if we don't have the ability for these teams to work together, then some of these details become more and more difficult. It's not that it's not the right move to move to this approach. It's really that we have to think about what's the right move for us in the short term. And so just don't, I feel like sometimes it's really easy for companies. You hear all this stuff about, well, to do account-based selling, you have to do this, 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 and this, and there's all these different things that are happening. You can do smaller scale things, right? And I think that that's really, really important for organizations to understand, is that, you don't have to go from 0 to 100, right? So these are the three things that just to think through when you're really starting the process out. Next, obviously, hopefully the answer is yes. It's really, how do we create alignments between these teams? What we've seen be successful for a lot of our clients is sales ops or marketing ops, depending on what roles that you have. Really being the centralized point can be a great strategy for this. Many times, this ABS in particular can tend to suffer from the tragedy of the commons, which is, if nobody owns it, then it tends to just fall by the wayside. And so what we've seen is that, what we try to create here is this kind of, this hub and spoke model, of collaboration. Right. And when we think about this next phase here, which is really, how do we get, people to collaborate? And obviously, anytime you can throw in a Vanilla Ice reference, it never hurts. All right. So how do we do this? So how do we create this ownership framework? So we know that we want to implement an ABS process. We have marketing in their corner. We have sales in their corner. We have an owner. I'm just going to use sales ops as, where we have seen this live successfully. And again, it could be marketing ops, etc. But step one is somebody has to own it, meaning one centralized figure has to be the hub. What we've seen consistently is that if instead, again, we continue to operate in our own world, we continue to operate with marketing's over here doing their thing, sales is doing these things, we kind of come together to do some strategies and some campaigns, we consistently see companies fail. And I think that that's really what we want to avoid here. And that's really where having this kind of centralized point person really comes into effect, right? And a centralized point person, again, these are really the 4 areas that you need to make sure that you're aiming toward as you start to implement the strategy. One is clear assignment of duties. Again, there can't be finger pointing. It can't be, I thought this was going to happen, I thought this person was going to handle this, etc. Marketing and sales have to get aligned on who exactly is going to own what. That then helps to create trust, which is the next component here. We have to have trust between the organizations. And that's really what this centralized resource can help to do, is help to bring everyone together consistently without people having to operate in these different silos. And then next step is creating a tracking and feedback loop. Again, we see many, many companies just launch headfirst into an ABS or an ABM strategy. And then what ends up happening inevitably is you come back and you say, what are the results, right? And it's like, it worked better. It was more effective. And we see many, many companies just not do as good of a job as they need to when it comes to actually tracking this, right? And there's no point in running experiments, and I'll talk about experiments next, if we can't track and create feedback. And that's, again, it's why having this centralized resource is so critical. It's that one person that everyone can look to. It's that one person that is tracking all these different activities and making sure that we're all on pace. And then finally, it's about setting expectations. This hub, the hub owner should really be responsible for setting expectations, right? And expectations aren't just the results. It's all the different expectations about the groups and the things that we expect from duty. What are we doing in our duties, right? Are we completing the tasks that we said that we would? Do we have the right tracking? Do we have the right feedback? Is each group contributing what they need to? So this hub is really, the person that's individually responsible, for making sure that all of these things align. All right, next, experiment, right? So point 3 here, right? We have to make sure that we really think of ABS and ABM as experimentation, right? That it's not going to work right out of the gate, that it's more important to learn in the early days than it is to be successful. And that's really why we see so many companies fail at implementing an account-based selling strategy, is that it's so easy to just look at success, because we already have this benchmark of the old way, right? We all know that the old way, we're not big fans of it, or it's kind of working, or we're not super thrilled with it. But still, it's much easier for us to go back to it. So what we see as successful when we think about experimenting is start small. Don't feel like you have to develop an ABS strategy for every ideal client profile, every industry, etc. We see companies that spend a month just developing a master strategy for how they're going to roll out ABS, as opposed to testing small. So the key is get aligned on what small experiments can we run to prove out ABS, right? Is there a vertical that we feel is going to be more susceptible to this? Do we feel like maybe we have specific sales reps that are going to be better at executing this in more ambiguity, right? So then as we do these small tests, then we can start to scale what works. Again, you have to treat these early stages of your ABS strategy not as, oh my gosh, how many new leads did we get? How many more contacts did we get added to the account? Instead, the early stage is about what works, what actually gets multiple stakeholders engaged throughout the sales process, what actually gets multiple stakeholders excited and participating in meetings, etc. So we're trying these different small strategies and then scaling up what works. Do not try to build out this grand 3-month long, whiteboard session, strategy after strategy session, and then try to implement, because then when things fail, you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't for us, etc. So again, start small in the areas where you feel like, early adopters or innovators or people that may be more susceptible to this type of strategy, you might be able to find those people. So start small. All right, so 4th point, right? Marketing doesn't stop past awareness, right? Marketing, and it's called account-based sales. It's not called account-based lead generation. And I think that this is a really, really important tenet for a lot of organizations that are implementing an ABS strategy to understand, is that marketing has to and should be involved in not just this initial, who do we target, what's the right piece of collateral or materials or things that's right for this type of person or this person specifically. It's throughout the process. How do we get other people involved as we're actually selling, right? It's account-based sales. And so when we think about this, ABS is more than just leads, right? It's about middle funnel movement, right? And so when you're really thinking about an account-based sales strategy, it's not just what is marketing doing to partner with sales to penetrate the one account. It's how do we actually move this forward in the funnel? How do we actually get a closed deal out of this? I think that's where a lot of companies struggle with ABS is they continue to think of marketing and sales in their own little bubbles. I've got marketing over here. They're supposed to be helping to generate MQLs. And we have sales over here, and they're supposed to be kind of closing stuff. Well, the whole concept of account-based sales is that marketing and sales are working together to penetrate accounts, right? And penetration isn't the first level, which is I just set a meeting with you. It's actually helping in the later stages of the funnel. Right? And so as you're putting together your ABS strategy, it's really important that marketing and sales leaders talk about what's marketing's role in the middle funnel, right? What's marketing's role and what's our role and what's going to actually work in terms of getting other stakeholders involved? What's the type of content that we're going to need? Should we be implementing additional strategies, again, to get these people involved, or not just to get them involved, setting new meetings or bringing them into meetings, but also just getting them excited, right? I think, again, it's all about it's really tough to judge success when we're only thinking about meetings, as opposed to can marketing get our IT department, can they get the IT department, who's usually a big blocker, off of our back? Because once we get to step 2, now in our ABS strategy, marketing is starting to send XYZ types of materials to IT. So there's all different types of ways that we've seen companies successfully implement, ABS techniques, with this kind of marketing and sales relationship for the middle funnel. But it's a really important, piece to understand here is that ABS is not just about generating more leads, right? It's not just about getting more people into the next meeting. It's about creating awareness. It's about persuading them. It's about also, creating interest from them as well too. And finally here is you have to commit, right? Again, point 5, and this is, probably the most critical. You have to commit. ABS is not a strategy that you can go in with one toe, right? And we see this time and time again. If you don't have the gumption, if you don't have the confidence to commit to experimentation, to commit to being okay with failure, to being committing to, okay, well, it didn't work when this group handled this, and now should this group handle this, where the hub is now kind of rearranging priorities. You have to commit to ABS, right? It cannot be something that you just think that you want to try, right? You have to find a team, put down, and rebuild the process, because that's really what you're doing here, right? As soon as we start to find these small strategies that scale, ABS requires you to change the way that you're selling, period. And I think that to get that level of commitment from the frontline teams and from the frontline leaders, it has to be a commitment from the top, right? It can't be, hey, we're going to try this thing. The try this thing can be the different strategies that we're going to try to see what actually works. But it's not that we're going to try this thing that is account-based sales. It's really the only option, right? And so when you're committing, these are the things to understand, right? Learn from your mistakes. It goes back to experimentation. It's not, in the early days, it's about learning. And learning what doesn't work many times is just as valuable as learning what does work. And so therefore, you as marketing and sales leadership have to get aligned and understand that, look, this is a 60, a 90, 120-day process to even start to figure out, how are we going to work together? What works? What moves the needle? What doesn't move the needle? Well, we tried this type of content. It didn't work. Okay, no problem. Now we'll try this type of content with our next deal. And so we have to be committed to this idea of learning and experimentation. And in sales, I think so many times we're so focused on action. Oh my gosh, something didn't work and it's a day later, right? It's like, oh my gosh, are we going to hit our numbers? Or, oh my gosh, let's just scrap everything and go back to sending out hundreds of emails. When in reality, you have to commit to the strategy. You have to commit that, we're going to learn from our mistakes, that everything's not going to be perfect, right? You have to customize it for your company. I talked about this in the very beginning. You can't go from 0 to 100. So get together as a team and talk about, hey, what makes sense for us today? As we think about the next 3, 6, 12 months, what are the roles that we're going to need? How could we grow this? So what could we do? Can we do some micro experiments to see what that would look like, so then we can add headcount, right? So it's okay to customize it for your company. Data. If we don't have data, if we're not tracking this, then we don't know if our experiments are working or not, right? And then finally, this has been a common theme, is you have to be patient, okay? You have to be patient when it comes to this. ABS sometimes doesn't take hold overnight. We're changing behaviors. We're changing the way that marketing fundamentally thinks about their role. We're changing the way that sales fundamentally interacts with what we used to call marketing, right? And we maybe have sales offices taking on a role that they haven't taken on before, right? So we have to be patient, right? So truly commit to ABS, we have to be very, very patient. So those are our 5 tips. So when we think about these things, and you as an organization, you're building out your ABS strategy, again, things to keep in mind, right? First, you have to do what's right for your company. Every company, no matter how small, can implement an account-based sales strategy, but you have to make sure you customize it and don't bite off, more than you can chew. Second is you have to create the right framework and the right people in the right roles from an ownership standpoint. Somebody has to own ABS. If nobody owns it, again, then you get your old school organizations. You got marketing saying you should do this, sales, you should do this. We have to have a hub, right? Somebody that's helping to coordinate these things. Third, experiment, right? Start small. Small strategies, testing, and then scaling what works. Don't try to over-architect from the very beginning. Come up with your hypotheses and start small. Fourth, right? Marketing doesn't start at just generating the lead. Marketing's got to be involved in helping to actually close the deal as well too, right? And then finally, you have to commit, guys, right? You cannot implement an account-based sales strategy without commitment. So again, thanks guys for attending the session. If you have any questions, this is how you can reach out to me. And I love talking about this topic. It's one of my favorite topics. So, again, feel free to reach out, and thanks everyone.